The Baseball Health Network on Wednesday, October 19th, is presenting a free webinar, How to Play. Damn it. How to play. I can't read my own handwriting. I'll start over again. Wednesday, October 19th, the Baseball Health Network is presenting a free webinar, How to Plan Your Baseball Offseason to Perform Your Best and Stay Healthy Next Year. And my guest this morning is the Performance Director for the Baseball Health Network, Eric Dagati. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Jim. Thanks for having me.
So how has off-season baseball training changed over the years, Eric?
Well, it's changing because it gets shorter and shorter, unfortunately, and it's the only window sometimes that I actually get access to a player because we play so many games throughout the year. And what I mean it gets shorter is that we're starting to play in March, is in Northeast as early as mid-March, and then that rolls from spring right to summer and then right into fall. And fall seasons keep getting later and later, where now fall seasons are almost running into the beginning of November. Now, I know there's other parts of the country they have sunshine all year round, where they have Christmas tournaments and New Year's tournaments, which is even crazier. But the problem with the offseason, it gets shorter and shorter, and that's really my only window to really make dramatic physical improvements in a player's body.
Now, you mentioned the amount of baseball that's going on, and for all intents and purposes, it's almost year-round here when you consider training. What do you do with multi-sport athletes? You've got a kid maybe playing soccer or football this fall, and at some point he's going to need to start ramping up for the spring season. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I have a concept that I call the totem pole effect. So the totem pole is how they kind of rank priority in Native American tribes. So we have to say, okay, well, what's your primary goal here? Now, football's a little bit different animal because of the physicality of it and how much you're going to get worn down. That if we can get anything in terms of a workout or some movement stuff, even or some light throwing or drill work, that's great. But it's really tough to squeeze in because it's such a demanding schedule. Where some of the other sports are a little bit more easy to work with. But when I say you have this priority, is that to say, let's say if you have a kid who's a three-sport athlete who plays soccer, who plays basketball, and then who plays baseball. Okay, if baseball is their primary sport, we have to do is kind of rank that and say, all right, well, our prime time to get you ready is going to be during basketball season. And so that means there may be times where we're going to be training and it may take a little bit away from your physical performance on the basketball court, but that's okay. We're going to make that agreement that that's something that we need to do because our primary focus is going to be on baseball. Now, if it was the other way around, well, that would flip. Now, it also happens that once we get into baseball season, they may still be playing some AAU tournaments with basketball. And so that has to go to the back burner because I can't have basketball affect my baseball performance. So you have to really have the athlete decide what is their priority. If they don't have one, well, that dials back your training intensity and your volume because you just can't do that much in the course of a day, especially when you have to factor in that they have to go to school and do their schoolwork and all the other things that have to get done.
And one of the other things, if a kid is playing multiple sports, he's physically in shape, he's using other muscles in those other sports than he might be using in baseball. But baseball being a sport with an overhead throwing athlete, there's a certain degree of training that you have to do ahead of the season.
There's some very unique qualities to baseball and softball that are not found in other sports other than maybe golf and somewhat lacrosse. And that, yes, first build an athlete, be as athletic as possible. So I'm not discouraging kids. I want kids to play as many sports as possible because there is going to be some carryover from any sport you play. And just that building that athleticism and not specializing, especially with young kids. Once you get into high school, that's a little bit different story as you start to turn the corner and if you want to play at another level. But there are some specifics in terms of movement ability. Number one is that like the degrees of external rotation of your shoulder that you need for most other sports is pretty pedestrian. Whereas what you need to actually throw a baseball is significantly more. And so I need to train for that. And so if I don't do that and then I just show up in March and start throwing a baseball, it's usually going to end up with you in a training room or a PT office.
Eric Dagati, my guest this morning here at 105.5 WDHA on the Jersey Magazine, the performance director for the Baseball Health Network. And the BHN, as we call it, is holding a free webinar on Wednesday, October 19th at 8 p.m. How to plan your baseball offseason to perform your best and stay healthy next year. Now, what are some of the areas that you'll be covering, Eric, personally in this webinar?
So I'm a big checklist guy, Jim. And so I always use the analogy that if you go to the supermarket, and you don't have the shopping list, you end up coming home with a bunch of stuff that you never end up cooking, and you end up throwing it away. Well, that's what ends up happening when people just kind of go haphazardly into going into a training program, is that they don't really have a program. They just do workouts. I had a high school team I consulted with once, and I went in and they had an article from Muscle and Fitness that they had taped on the wall that was Evan Longoria's workout. And it's like nothing could be more inappropriate for what these kids needed. That a program is specific to whatever it is that you need. And the dynamics and the unique needs of each athlete is what needs to get addressed in a program. So the checklist is, okay, do you move well? Meaning, can you do simple things like touch your toes and rotate and extend back and lunge and those sorts of things? Then from there, do you have the specific movement criteria as far as hip rotation, shoulder rotation, trunk rotation that's required for baseball? And then from there, are you strong enough? Do you have enough physical capacity? From there, can you convert that strength into power? From there, can you convert that into speed when you're actually out in the field? And so we kind of go through this checklist to say, okay, do you have these things? And if not, well, then you have to build a recipe for that, as opposed to just, I'm going to do a baseball workout, which you kind of hope it hits the spots, but it generally doesn't. It's like going to the food store hungry without a list.
Dangerous, because you end up there at the counter and it's the impulse buy.
Yeah, and you end up with 5 pounds of kale that you're never going to cook and you throw away 2 weeks later.
So it is Wednesday, the 19th at 8 o'clock, and Eric will be there, of course, along with Steve Hayward, who's the founder of the Baseball Health Network, and Dr. Christopher Ahmad, who's the head team physician for the New York Yankees. All of the details and how you can register are on the Baseball Health Network's Facebook page, and that URL is facebook.com/baseball health network. The URL again, facebook.com/baseball health network. Wednesday, the 19th, 8 o'clock. It's a free webinar. Eric, thank you very much for your time and best of luck with the webinar.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll see you on the 19th.